At this time, I would like to just recognize any veterans who are in the crowd this morning. If you are a veteran, having served our wonderful country over the years, please raise your right hand. Not that we're going to swear you in again, but we just want to know who you are. And thank you for your service to our great country. God bless you all. Thank you. Also want to thank our men and women in uniform who serve us overseas at home in the armed forces, as well as our local law enforcement, police, sheriff, our first responders, firemen, and EMTs. So, God bless you all. We have a very busy morning. We're already running late. I apologize for that. But it's a party, and we don't always need to have firm schedules. So the first speaker this morning is going to be a young man that I served in the New Hampshire General Court, House of Representatives with during Governor Craig Benson's administration back in 03 and 04. And this gentleman is a veteran. And I'd like you folks to give a warm welcome to Bob Gaida, who's running for State Senate District 2. Bob?
Thank you, Homer, and thank you for going through the effort of putting this together. It is a lot of work. We need more people here. My name is Bob Gaida, and I'm running for the State Senate position being vacated by Jeannie Forrester. She pursues the governor's seat. Why am I running? I'm 64 years old. I retire at the end of this year. I've served my nation. I've served my town as a selectman, as a town moderator. I'm on the school board. And I served 6 years in the New Hampshire House, and they were good years, 2001 through 2006 into early 7. We accomplished a great deal because Republicans pulled together on the same end of the rope. Today, it's a different world. We face a ticket at the top that is controversial at least, if not contentious, and perhaps worse. Many people have said, if my candidate does not win this race, I'm not going to vote. That's giving the victory to the bad guys. And they are bad guys. Their intentions for us are not good. I believe that the federal system is in deep trouble. I think that we need to fight federal intervention and federal influence in our states at the state level, and that's why I'm running for the state senate. It's a very powerful body that really does set the direction and the tone for our state. And we need people there that have the experience. I have some small business experience. I understand that. I've owned and operated several small businesses. It's getting harder and harder. We have to understand the infrastructure problems that face our district, Senate District 2. Our state is in the bottom 10 in the United States in 2 areas. And both of these areas are critical to bringing businesses that in fact then produce jobs, which is really critical if you go to the North Country. Infrastructure and energy costs are killing our state. We are not even close to competitive on energy costs, and we see a great deal of controversy about Northern Pass, about the gas pipeline across the south part of the state. Those are issues that, while emotional, also need a little bit of economic and scientific fact applied to them. So we suffer because we have loss of jobs. We suffer because our North Country looks like 1935. Boarded up buildings, closed down businesses. We need the jobs, and sometimes you're going to have to make compromises on positions. So I don't have a position on Northern Pass. My position on it is I'm going to listen to the 27 towns in this district. I'm going to see what their position is. I'm going to refute ideas that are not factual, and I'm going to listen, find out where they want to go, and then we'll have to go that way. That's the job of a representative. We're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. We have to remember that. Democracy was despised by our founders. They hated it because democracy always goes away. It destroys itself from within. We're not teaching the Constitution and the Declaration. And as a result of that, our kids are falling prey to ideology called socialism, which has failed miserably in every place it has ever been tried. And it continues to fail wherever it's tried, and yet it's very appealing because it appeals to us emotionally. But the science of self-governance tells us otherwise. I won't belabor you with too much more. I am a conservative. I believe in protecting the rights to the life of the unborn. Very strong Second Amendment, 100% voting record for the House Republican Alliance. I have leadership experience. I spent 2 of my 6 years in Congress as the Deputy Majority Leader of the third largest governing body in the world. That leadership experience, plus my legislative experience, I was the prime sponsor of the constitutional amendment that put an end to mischief with eminent domain. As a result of that amendment, it was, by the way, the most popular amendment in New Hampshire state history. Eminent domain cannot be used by government to take property and give it to a private entity. That was very much in play during Kelo versus New London, which was the original case in Connecticut that took it to the Supreme Court. So I'm a very strong proponent of property rights. I would share with you this in closing. The things we believe in as Republicans, as conservatives, as Tea Party people, okay, are under direct assault. And we have to pull together to win. We have to put good candidates up in front of people who can articulate the issues and bring people to understand that our natural rights, our Bill of Rights, and property rights are in the crosshairs of a movement that would take our country far from its original intended purposes. Thank you for your time. I hope I can earn your support going forward for this vote for state senate in the primary. And I'll take any questions after the fact. I know there are other speakers. Thank you.
Of my vision is that we need to have a reasonable spending plan that addresses the needs of the state, not all of the wants, but what the true needs of the state are, supported by realistic revenues, not pie in the sky revenues or revenues we would like to see, but we need to make A plus B equals C. Like the speakers before me, life is also a cornerstone. My wife and I are blessed with 5 children and 7 grandchildren. That should speak for itself on our position on life. Many of us here today, share in the common theme that our liberties are being infringed upon. Well, it's not just a theme. It's a reality, and it's happening before us, and those of us in the legislature are constantly challenged by the erosion, little by little, like water dripping, to take away these rights. So what do we do, or what have we done? Well, I sit on the delegation of Belknap County with 17 other Republicans at this point. I can report to you that we finished up our budget in March, and this year we lowered the amount of money that is being assessed to the 14 communities, which will incrementally lower the county tax rate for each community. Is it tremendously significant? In one sense, it's significant because we've changed the direction. It'll leave a few more dollars in people's pockets, and those folks that present budgets going in the future, it'll be just a little bit harder to have more spending come into the mix. So with that, I can pledge to you, if as we go forward and we have a respectful campaign, Bob and I and others, that I will be a servant of the people full-time, and I do understand how economic pressures affect us all. With that in mind, if there's more I can share with you, you could also go to my website, briangallagher.org. There's more information, and I hope to chat with a few of these folks later today. God bless, and thank you very much.
Just to remind you what it is that the word T stands for. There were 3 young PSU students that stopped by while we were setting up. And I said, we were having a tea party. And they said, well, what is the, I said, you know what the T stands for? TEA. And one of the young men, and they were all either business or marketing majors at PSU. I don't want to give away any more information because, anyway. So one of the young fellows immediately said, T. And then he said, not T, tax. And I thought he was going good. And he said, tax equality. So I said, the T in Tea Party stands for taxed enough already. We are taxed enough already. And we're trying to let our government know, local, school, county, state, and federal, that we Americans have had enough. We are taxed enough already. We're taxed enough already. We Tea Party folks are accused of being radicals. And just let me share with you some of the Tea Party principles. And I got to thank Russ Cumby from Franconia, who put this little list together for us early on. The principles are less government spending, lower taxes, very radical idea. Constitutionally limited government, free markets, personal responsibility. Again, another radical concept. The rule of law, national sovereignty, and the most radical part of all, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So this is what the Tea Party in New Hampshire stands for. So you'll be hearing a little bit more from me as we go on, but the important thing to remember is this is a Tea Party today, and we're taxed enough already. At this time, I'd like to quickly ask David Nash, another Tea Party organizer in this neck of the woods, to come and talk with us a little bit about what the Plymouth area Tea Party Patriots does as an organization. David Nash, come on up.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank you for being here, and I just want to say a brief word. I have been helping Omer as co-chairman of the local Plymouth area Tea Party Patriots. Quite frankly, up until probably about a year ago, I'd like to maybe talk a little politics or what was going on with our country, but I didn't do a whole lot about it. And in fact, it was a meeting here on April 15th, probably 6 years or more ago, that I first met Omer. And I was walking down Main Street and people were out here, and I stopped by and said, well, what's going on? And that was about it until maybe about 24 months ago, I can't remember, but at some point, you know, in my heart, I had to say it wasn't somebody else's problem. It wasn't somebody else I was going to wait on to take care of our nation, to take care of our local politics, or take care of righting the wrongs that were going on in our nation. It's often said that you point a finger at somebody else and there's four pointing back at you. So I just had to start doing something. So I got in touch with Omer, got involved with our local Plymouth area Tea Party Patriots, and I want to invite you to be part of the solution and part of the voice of our town, which will join with the voices of other towns and other Tea Party Patriots across the state and across the nation. The Tea Party Patriots nationally are making a difference in Washington, D.C. and making a difference in our country.
So if you would like to join us from the other side of the sidewalk, we'd love to have you learn more about what the Tea Party movement is. First of all, good morning. I'm Ovid Lamontang, and I'm proud to be here on behalf of Senator Kelly Ayotte, who I'm supporting in her re-election bid. Some of you may remember that in 2010, I too was a candidate for the United States Senate and appeared at a number of Tea Party rallies with Kelly and other candidates for U.S. Senate at that time. And it was very clear that the Tea Party movement really took focus back in 2010. The United States tax code and the ensuing rules and regulations total about 80,000 pages. The code is 80,000 pages. It's 80,000 pages of tyranny 80,000 pages of oppression.
Yes.
80,000 pages of exploitation of the American people, except if you're wealthy and well-connected. Because that tax code is being used to suppress us, average citizens, and yet it's a plaything for the powerful, the connected. It is the worst example of government out of control, of government run amok. The tax code itself has to come to an end, and we need to simplify this tax code, a position that Kelly Ayotte supports and has supported since 2010. We just need to have enough elected representatives and a president who will be serious about reducing this tax code to 3 pages, 5 pages. Carly Fiorina, who I supported, was an advocate of a 3-page tax code, and she knew how to get it done. And I think it's important that we continue to look for leadership on this tax code issue. And consider further that the IRS, the agency charged with enforcing this tyrannical, oppressive document and rules and regulations, is also charged with enforcing the Affordable Care Act. Since when are tax collectors charged with our health care? Only through, again, a distorted, misguided, and frankly, ill-conceived health care bill. And again, Kelly Ayotte was committed in 2010 to repealing Obamacare in its entirety, and in 2016, she continues to be committed to that proposition. And in the meantime, she's been fighting to repeal the medical device tax. Other tax mechanisms have been put in place through Obamacare that has been oppressing the people of this country and the people of this state. Friends, you know and I know that we are the greatest country in the history known to mankind because we were founded on the radical proposition, as John F. Kennedy said in his inaugural address, the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. And you and I are the ones who are in charge of our country. And Kelly Ayotte understands that. She understands she is a servant to the people of New Hampshire and this great nation, and to the state of New Hampshire. Government derives its power from us. We know that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And it is only through our duly elected representatives can we continue to take this fight to Washington, to Concord, to the city halls and the town halls of the state, to make sure that government serves us and doesn't rule us. And that's why I am proud to stand with Kelly Ayotte. Now, she has continued to fight in Washington in ways that are not well reported, but continues to fight for balanced budget amendments. You know, Mel Thompson taught us a number of things, didn't he? Mel Thompson's operating principle was this. As the tax governor, he said, low taxes are the result of low spending. Yeah. Common sense, right? Low taxes are indeed the result of low spending. And the only way we're going to get our federal government under control is through the same mechanisms and pressures we have here in New Hampshire, and that's called the Balanced Budget Amendment. Kelly Ayotte supports the Balanced Budget Amendment and is a fighter for that too. We need to get control of the spending as well as the tax system in order to protect our liberties, advance our freedoms, and make us an even better country, not only for our children, but our grandchildren and generations to come. Last night, Omer and I happened to be at the same place, and I was in Atkinson, New Hampshire, speaking at the Rockingham County Republican dinner. And we were asked, those of us who were asked to speak, to talk about a founding father who made an impact on us. And I went as Kelly's representative, and I spoke about my founding father, who was General John Stark. Wouldn't it make sense that a Revolutionary War general, one of the finest leaders of our time, came from New Hampshire and was called the Maverick General? And when he was asked to serve in the Revolutionary War under George Washington, he was asked by and appointed by then the legislature in charge at that time, sitting in Exeter, to be the Brigadier General of New Hampshire. And he said, I will only accept this commission under one condition. I report only to the people of New Hampshire. He was fiercely independent. He led the troops at the Battle of Bennington, which really was a turning point in the war that showed, in fact, that these American fighters, these colonists, could actually win. And through that success, the French were inspired to come and contribute, participate in the American Revolution, which is an important development. But John Stark was also a citizen leader. After the war was over, he went back to Manchester, worked on his farm, and he lived 93 years. Now, a lot of people in New Hampshire think that the words on our license plate were uttered by a charge on a hill or some other battlefield scene. But indeed, those words, "Live free or die," by General John Stark, were written as part of a toast on the 32nd anniversary of the Battle of Bennington. And I share this with you because to go to a point that Henry was making, to go to a point that Kelly makes all the time. Kelly Ayotte believes that words and ideas have power. Those words, which were invoked as part of a toast, became part of the granite fabric of our state, to the point that we now have "Live free or die" on our license plates. That we distinguish ourselves as a state, as people who believe in each other, believe in people, not government, who believe that the price of freedom is worth the price of life. That's how committed we are to it. Think about this. That slogan on the license plates of New Hampshire was actually brought to the U.S. Supreme Court in a case called Woolley versus Maynard. The Maynards were Jehovah's Witnesses who objected to the idea that they had to actually proclaim "Live free or die" as a state motto on their license plates. These are people of conscience and of religion, and the Supreme Court agreed with them. And I would submit to you, John Stark would agree with them too. Because in the end, government cannot be compelling us, forcing us to abandon our deeply held religious beliefs. And Kelly Ayotte stands for life, she stands for religious freedom and liberty, and that's why she believes, as you all do, we need to get our country under control when it comes to taxation, when it comes to spending, when it comes to the power of government. Yes, we're very proud of our slogan. We continue to uphold it and stand by it. But today, let us rededicate ourselves to do it even more forcefully, effectively, positively through our words and deeds, that indeed we believe in the "Live free or die" motto. I ask you to join me helping Kelly Ayotte in her re-election. Maggie Hassan would never come to a meeting like this, would never send a representative. She'll be part of the problem that will continue to grow government, continue to let government out of control. She's done it as our governor. She'll do it in spades when she gets a chance to work with Chuck Schumer, Harry Reid, and the other liberals down in Washington. Let us send Kelly Ayotte back to Washington to be a fighter for us, men and women, children of New Hampshire. I am proud of that New Hampshire senator. I hope you'll join me in supporting her. God bless you, God bless America, and God bless the great state of New Hampshire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ovid. Historically, the United States has had people from Europe and other parts of the world come and visit with us. And we had one such fellow by the name of Edmund Burke. And he was here in the early 1800s. And one of the things that he said after visiting our United States, our young country, he said, "All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." And he used the word men in a generic sense. So the fact that you're here today is a testament to your beliefs, and you're willing to stand up, be seen, and be heard as we tell again our local, town, municipal, county, state, and federal governmental officials that we are taxed enough already. We are taxed enough already. And we need to reduce government spending, among other things. And in fact, our next speaker is running for the governorship of the state of New Hampshire. He is a sitting state representative, and I'm pleased to introduce to you folks Frank Edelblum. Frank?
Homer, thank you. Okay, 10 minutes or so, not a problem.
Or so.
Or so, we'll see how it goes. I'm usually very precise and I just get to the point. I don't need tons of time typically. But I do appreciate the fact that I got to come out here this afternoon and speak with you. I am a state representative, serve on Ways and Means, so I serve on the other side, the appropriation side, on the Finance Committee. And it's really interesting what I'm observing. I don't know if you know this, but this year, in our budget year, revenues are coming in a little higher, right, on the Ways and Means side. And they're lining up already outside of Finance Department trying to find ways to spend that money. They just can't wait. They're saying like, hey, if we have an extra dollar, we got to go ahead and spend it. We don't want to have a budgeting process that says, well, how much money can we appropriate from the citizens of New Hampshire, and then that's how much we're going to go spend. Well, actually, what they do is they just raise it up a little bit more, and we try and spend that. Now, everyone knows that the reason that we are here is because of the 16th Amendment to the Constitution. Is that right? Everybody got this one? I wrote it down just so I get it correct here, but Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, and they've come up with a lot of them, without apportionment among the several states, without regard to any census or enumeration. That's the reason why we're here today, because of that 16th Amendment that got ratified on February 3rd in 1913. Do you know something? It was actually passed, like we got the resolution passed in 1909, but it took a few years for the states to have to ratify it. Do you know that New Hampshire, initially in 1911, we rejected that. We said we don't need an income tax. We don't need this taxing authority at the federal government level. And yet, it still ultimately got passed. Sadly, New Hampshire in March actually approved that resolution, but it was a moot point at that point because we already had 38 other states that had approved it. But I appreciate the fact that we tried to resist, at least for a certain amount of time. Now, last night I had an opportunity I was at an event and I had an opportunity to talk about one of my favorite founding fathers. And there's an aspect of this founding father that I think is germane to this and relevant to this conversation, right? There's a guy, John Dickinson. Now, by hand, raise your hand. Anybody knew that John Dickinson was a founding father? Because I didn't. You know, oh, we got a couple of history buffs here, they knew. So one of the things is that John Dickinson did is he's the guy who wrote the farmers' letters. You know, just kind of that regular citizen. He was started to write letters that were widely publicized against the British government, and particularly the Townshend Acts by the British government. One of the things that the Townshend Acts were trying to do is the Townshend Acts were designed to raise revenue from the people in order to pay for this growing bureaucracy that was going to rule over and supervise everything. Can anybody imagine an opportunity that there would be this increasing amount of taxes to pay for a larger bureaucracy to rule over the people? Can anyone ever imagine that happening? You know? But that's what he was fighting about then, and I actually think that's what we're fighting for and we're fighting against today as well. I'm trying to think of how to pull this in, but you know, what I'm concerned about is the state sovereignty, because another issue that John Dickinson was concerned about was the sovereignty of the colonies. I mean, they recognized that there was this central bureaucracy over in the British Isles that were ruling over things, but they said, you know, that has no jurisdiction in the colonies. And so what they were trying to do, you know, what John Dickinson was trying to do is push back on this overreach and say, like, we have sovereignty. And you know, that sovereignty exists today. Today, New Hampshire, for every dollar that we send into Washington, D.C., they send us back 81 cents of our money, by the way, and then they tell us how we're going to spend it. That's our money. Why are they telling us how we're going to spend our money? And so what we need is, we need a governor who is willing to push back on that federal overreach and say, like, no, you don't understand. This is our money. We'll figure out how we're going to spend it to solve the problems in our state. We don't need some guys in some far-off, detached government entity to tell us how we're going to do this. I want to share with you a personal story. I got an MBA degree in my life. And I'm thinking that many of you might have MBAs as well too. Mine stands for Made by Adversity. Anybody ever have that experience? You got one of those degrees? Okay. You can learn a lot with an MBA, can't you? And in that process of acquiring my MBA, I learned the important lesson of what it means to stand strong, to do the right thing even when it's not easy to do, right? When there's all kinds of pressures, there's some uncertainty, you don't know what's going to be on the other side of it, but you know what's right to do and you stand firm in spite of the fact that there might be consequences. We need more of politicians that have earned MBA degrees, right? Made by adversity. Because when I get up into that corner office, and I will be sitting in that office, and you're not all going to be there every day, and there's going to be hard decisions that are going to need to be made. You're going to want somebody who has an MBA, who has been tried, who's been under pressure, but in spite of that makes the right decisions. We elect Republicans to office so that they will go to Concord and they will represent the Republican values that we sent them there for. We don't need guys who are going to go to Concord and figure out how to get along with everybody else. Getting along is a good thing, but we need to represent the Republican values that put them there. And so I guess in conclusion, really what I want to just talk about is this whole idea of, you need to send someone up to the corner office who is principled, knows where we want to be and where we want to go, and is willing to both make hard decisions, make principled decisions, take the heat when you have to take the heat in order to represent the Republican values. And so I hope that you will support me for governor and in my race, and I hope that all of us will continue to assert our sovereignty as a state, as New Hampshire, and as individuals, and fight back against the overreach of government to try and tell each of us how we're supposed to be living our lives. Thank you.